Hey there folks, welcome to Silent Film Saturday, episode number 49. Finally, we have the return of Fritz Lang on the show with Die Nibelungen, a two-part epic from Fritz Lang from 1924. This is the Kino Blu-ray release, and let me just examine the packaging. This is the cover, of course, it's a slipcase actually, and this is the iconic image of Siegfried about to fight the dragon. The back, which has supplemental content which includes a new restoration, score by Gottfried Huppertz, who did the score for Metropolis, the original score, and he did this score back in 1924. The Legacy of Die Nibelungen and newsreel footage of Fritz Lang on the set of Die Nibelungen. Take off the slipcase, this is the front, same thing as that in the back. 2-disc set, poster there. Siegfried getting stabbed, and then Siegfried in the forest, which is pretty cool. So this might be one of my longer reviews that I've had in quite some time. So there's two parts. There's Siegfried, and then there's Kriemhilde's Revenge. Excuse me, Siegfried and Kriemhilde's Revenge. Siegfried, you have the titular character of Siegfried, who's a son of a pretty important king, and he becomes a blacksmith. He's a blacksmith for a period of time, and because of his mentor's storytelling, he decides to go to Kriemhilde, who's this princess, and he decides he's gonna marry her and find her. And then he, goes on these magical quests. He meets this guy who is the Nibelungen treasure, and before that he fights the dragon, which is this image right here. And then he gets to the kingdom, and once he gets to the kingdom, meets the king, who the prince, or the king, the ruler, the main guy for that kingdom for Kriemhilde, who's Kriemhilde's brother, and basically, the brother is all like, "Look, Siegfried, you can have her, but I need you to help me get Brunhilde become my wife." And so through Siegfried's magical item, his magical helmet, which allows him to transform and become invisible, he's able to get Brunhilde for the king. And treachery happens because it's found out that Siegfried assisted the king in acquiring Brunhilde, and then there's a plot to kill Siegfried, and then Siegfried dies. At the end of the movie, Kriemhilde, who's now married, at this point was married to Siegfried, now she's a widow, swears revenge on the man who killed Siegfried, Trondheim, I believe, Hagenot Trondheim, who is a really interesting character. But away from the story for a moment, the thing I like about this film, or the visual, is it's a more magical oriented film than the second part, which I'll get to later. This film features, like a mine, there's smithing, and it feels like a mine. You have the dragon. Now this dragon is pretty cool. Obviously he's not as advanced as Smaug or something like that, but he's this, it's a practical effect. It's physically there. It's not a digital creation. It's breathing fire, and it does bleed when Siegfried cuts it and kills it, ultimately. And then Siegfried bathes in the blood of the dragon, which helps him become invincible, but there's a part of it's like his shoulder right here that gets covered. And that's how he's ultimately defeated in the film. But, kind of similar to Achilles' heel. And he acquires the magical helmet, and he's able to become invisible, and transform into anything he wants. And it's really nice when he disappears. It makes me think of the invisibility cloak in Harry Potter. I haven't seen that in years, but I remember in the first film, or in one of the early films, I think it's the first film, where they had the invisibility cloak. Made me think of that a bit. Other impressions, well, obviously the sets are quite impressive. I love the little lake area where the dragon is. I like where he was a smith, and the castle set for the Burgundy Kingdom, which is where Kriemhild is, pretty cool. In terms of the visual elements, I love the character Hagen Tronhe. I can't never pronounce his name, but he has like one eye, beard, chainmail, and he's got this helmet with like the wings on it, and he looks incredibly badass. Sorry to, say it like that, but he does look really cool in the film. In terms of the story, I really didn't care as much. It was just kind of a journey of a guy, trying to find the girl, which was kind of boring. But it got interesting in the last, third or fourth of the film, because you have Brunhilde, who, is a strong woman who gets cheated, of her independence because of some guy with an invisibility helmet. She gets cheated, and she plots to kill Siegfried. And then ultimately, of Kriemhild, who is like, I swear vengeance. And that leads us into part 2. Now, part 2, Kriemhilde's Revenge, is what you want in a sequel. It's a sequel that continues off the first one, and in terms of story, it's better in my opinion. It's more character-oriented. Yeah, you establish characters in the first one, but the first one I think was more about the visual spectacle, like the dragon and the magical helmet, and the challenges with Kriemhild. Kriemhild, played by Marguerite Schoen, I believe her name is. She's amazing in this film. She looks like a physical painting with the makeup and what she's wearing and her braids. Her character is just stone cold, but she shows scenes where she gets angry because she wants vengeance. She wants revenge against Tronhe for killing her husband and leaving her a widow. And in this film, basically, she wants that vengeance, but she marries Attila the Hun, King Etzel, played by Rudolf Klein-Rohe, who also played Rotvang in Metropolis, another Fritz Lang film, and in another Fritz Lang film, the titular character of Dr. Mabusa the Gambler, which is really cool. And he plays it well. I love the makeup in these films too, with the dirtier characters. They have like hair and some bald spots, and they're grimy and gritty, and they got rags and such. And he's got like his throne. He's got the court of Attila the Hun is really cool because it's all these guys just like these scoundrels almost just running about. And this one emphasizes some like larger scale battle scenes, where you have like the Huns against the Burgundy, the Germans in the film. And initially Kriemhild doesn't want to get married to Attila the Hun, but she's all like, you know what? I really want revenge, and I think this might be my best way of getting my revenge against the man who killed my husband. And in that sense, it's really cool. And the third act is just nothing but like battles, burning, stabbing, there's a decapitation in there somewhere, and visually it's all really splendid. I guess it's like a grand Guignol ending, and that's basically my overall summary of each of the films. What I really found funny is that in total this is a almost 5-hour epic when you put together the two films. And that aggravated my mother a bit when I was watching this film this week, because she's just like, when are you ever going to finish this film? Because usually I review shorter things on this show, and even with the longer films, they're usually like 3.5 hours, and maybe just 2.5 hours. Or maybe they're just serialized, but this is just 2 parts. Each of them like at least a solid 2 hours. Part 1 being 2.5 hours. And that leaves it, it's a somewhat exhausting experience. You better be sure you have time when you watch this. It's not like when you put on like a Chaplin or Buster Keaton film, you can just sit back and it's just like an hour and a half or less. This is a commitment, and I'm glad I sat through these 2 films. What else I really like, the restoration is beautiful, and we could be fortunate because in Metropolis it's more scratchier 16mm footage. This is really crisp and clean for the most part. Not everything is there, but it looks very good. And also, the Gottfried Huppert score is fantastic. I love his score in Metropolis, and this score is epic and operatic. carries you through all the emotions and anger and frustration of Kriemhild. Also, one additional scene is where she's carrying this cloth, and she says to the earth, your surface was soaked by the blood of my husband. Soon I will have it soaked by the blood of his murderer. And I love lines like that, where characters just are so passionate with revenge that they say things like that. I loved this experience. It was so much, in a sense, it was a long experience, but it was a lot of fun seeing this. And I promise you we will get more Fritz Lang on Silent Film Saturday. He hasn't been featured since I reviewed Metropolis. So, yeah, here's hoping we'll get more of him soon. I promise you we'll get him eventually. But next week, for episode 50, I'll be revisiting a film that I actually reviewed on the channel once before, but that was back when I was like in high school, and I really want to update my thoughts on it now as a, sophomore in college. That film is Victor Seastrom's 1924 film, He Who Gets Slapped, starring Lon Chaney, John Gilbert, and Norma Shearer. See you next week.